Before I begin, I would like to impose a trigger warning for the topics of sexual harassment, sexual assault, and possible rape for a later portion, so discretion is advised. Video games. More than half of the population today plays them to at least some extent. Games as a medium aren't going anywhere, and they're as complex and deep as any other art form. Nevertheless, they're often treated as toys, and as such, not taken as seriously in terms of diversity, especially when it comes to female characters. A common retort when criticizing a poorly written female character is, oh, well, it's just a game, so why does it matter? But why is this the case? And why are games still being seen as and being treated as for boys? Well, until the late 80s, they weren't. Beginning in 1983, a major crash in the game industry caused companies to grow desperate to increase sales. And by 1986, the industry hit an all-time low. In this time, Nintendo made the decision to move from the electronics aisle to the toy aisle. The problem? Toy aisles were very strictly segregated. On one side were the pink, fluffy princess dolls for the girls, and on the other, the blue, rugged action figures for the boys. In the end, executives simply decided that since they needed to pick an aisle, games were simply much more marketable to boys. Sexism in the industry isn't caused by designers sitting in a room trying to figure out how to best achieve the heteronormative, anti-feminist agenda, but rather due to complacency for the status quo, neglect rather than conspiracy. Even with recent years, there's still a slew of truly awful representation for women in games, whether they be dumbed down or outright objectified. Often this is due to lazy or poor writing, or in some of the worst cases, both that and character design. For example, when you envision a warrior or a fighter, what do you see? Likely, you see someone with a little bit of armor or padding to protect themselves, or at least, you know, some clothes. Now, this is Ivy Valentine in her depiction in Soul Calibur 4. So, this honestly looks like she's wearing a single piece of string. Given, yes, I will admit that's a bit hyperbolic, but I mean, come on. What is she protecting? A single shoulder and an arm, yeah, but what about her vital organs? I mean, she's from a fighting game, so shouldn't she be prepared for battle? I would sort of understand this if in the game she fought only in hand-to-hand combat, but characters in this game use weapons. Swords, blades, whips, you name it. Normally, I don't have a problem with sexualized characters in games, as they can actually be done right. Often this is revolving around a femme fatale archetype, which is completely fine. I begin to take issue, however, when this is overtaken by genuinely bad and unrealistic design. Her clothing looks so ridiculously tight that it would be downright painful to wear. Also, her body proportions are preposterous. Her breasts are so unrealistically large that in all actuality, they would cause her such intense back pain that she could certainly not fight, let alone in heels. Now, there is a right way to do an overtly sexual character. Firstly, it's important to note that this should not be their one and only character trait, or rather can still be a part of their personality. Also, the level of absurdity when it comes to things like their body proportions should be matched with the tone of the game. A good example of this, in my opinion, is Bayonetta, but before I show you an image of her, I would like to inform you was designed by a woman. So Bayonetta is a game rated M for mature audiences about an Umbran witch of the same name, who uses her hair as a source of magic to fight angels and demons. The game is over the top, and generally cheeky and comedic in tone, and this is matched by Bayonetta's character. Her fighting style is over-the-top violent, but so is everyone else's in the game, so this doesn't feel out of place. The only difference here is that her attacks are filled with sexual innuendos, but this isn't meant to demean her as a character, as this is not all there is to her. She's incredibly witty, independent, smart, and loyal, and she's protective of others in need. A major complaint that many have with Bayonetta is the fact that during her fighting sequences, her armor, which is magically comprised of her hair, becomes more revealing. But I would argue this is realistic, given the context that during the Salem witch hunts, witches were seen as having their magic come from their hair. And so during this time, they would be stripped of all of the hair from their body, both because of this reason and in search of what is called a devil mark, or basically just a mark on someone's body that indicates that they've made a contract with a demon, which Bayonetta actually has below her lips, right here. Now, if this doesn't sell it for you, look no further than Nintendo themselves, who allowed the character entry into Super Smash Bros. 4 and onward, a mostly family-friendly fighting game from a family-friendly company rated E10+. The only changes made to her design were that her clothing was made just a bit less revealing, and her more suggestive poses were edited, but still included. Now, part of the issue I brought up with Ivy Valentine was just how unrealistic and insufficient her armor was. In the MMO Terra, characters can be a multitude of different races, two of which being one called Castonic and one that's just simply humans. Castonic characters are roguish, and thus so is their fashion. Humans are simply humans. Now, fashion is still a factor, but when a character is wearing heavy armor, one would kind of assume that their whole body would be covered. I'm about to show you a set of heavy armor on a male character, and then, which I didn't mention this before, but in Terra, you can equip the exact same set of armor to a character regardless of gender, with the only difference being visual. And now this is the same set of armor, the exact same set of heavy armor, but on a female character. Now, to prove that this isn't just because Castonic characters, being more roguish, their armor is more scandalous and revealing, here is another set of heavy armor on a human male character, and now again the exact same set of heavy armor on a human female character. So, frankly, this is ridiculous. This is the exact same set of armor. So why are they so drastically different, let alone different at all visually? Also, this goes back to the issue with Ivy Valentine, with her armor being so tight and straight, painful looking. A weird common trend I've noticed when game designers are being lazy and they want to show off a character's assets, they just simply slap a few metal plates on their arms and legs and anything that wouldn't be allowed in an M-rated game, and call it a day. This is just lazy, and players, regardless of gender, deserve so much better. Now, for some hope, I would like to bring up a character, Brigitte, from Overwatch. Now, this is a beautifully designed set of armor to begin with, and it is a prime example of why designers don't have to sacrifice practicality and realism to make their female fighters look more feminine. Now, Brigitte is a support character, meaning that she can heal and protect other players. She can also be used as a tank, which is a heavy hitter who can draw attackers away from other players. This is readily apparent with her design. And it's easy to tell in or out of battle just how much thought was put into her. Outside of battle, you can clearly tell that, one, she spends all of her time in a giant suit of armor, but also she's an engineer who specializes in heavy armor. And her arms are bulky and muscular, and she wears big protective gloves, which frankly is just good character design. Also, in the game, she has depth. Like many other characters in Overwatch, she has a set, detailed backstory and a specific reason for fighting, even having set relationships with other characters. Her goal is to protect and heal, and proclaims in her origins video, "I am Brigitte Lindholm, and I will be your shield." All in all, the level of thought and intent put into her design has really caused her to resonate with the game's community. Now, the issues that I've mentioned are very specific examples, but they're pervasive and widespread in the industry. And this is very likely due to the simple lack of women in the industry. Only 20% of game designers today are women, and those who are have to deal with sexist and hostile work environments. Currently, League of Legends creator RIOT Games is undergoing a class action lawsuit for creating a quote-unquote men-first workplace in which women, even if equally or more qualified for a position, were, for one, denied, and the women of the company overall have dealt with constant sexual harassment, misconduct, and bias in their day-to-day lives. I would like to now reiterate my trigger warning from earlier, as from here on out it does get a bit heavy, and I don't wish to distress anyone. Now, within the lawsuit, one female employee, specifically, discovered an email chain in which her coworkers were discussing what it would be like to penetrate her. And another coworker in the same email chain said that she would be a great target to sleep with and never call again. In another incident, COO Scott Gelb, still employed as of writing this, has been accused of touching other employees' genitalia and making inappropriate comments to plaintiff Melanie McCracken. Now, sexual harassment in the workplace is a huge issue in our society today overall, but it's amplified in the game design industry due to the gendered nature of the industry adopted in the late 80s. That said, though, games today have improved. More and more women each day are entering the industry. And as such, representation is getting better. But at the same time, issues like I've mentioned, and more specifically workplace issues such as that with Scott Gelb, still persist. So what can we as consumers do? What can we do to help? Well, before you purchase a game, maybe do some research into how women are represented within it. If a female character in the game seems over-sexualized, see if maybe it makes sense in the context of the game. Decide for yourself whether or not this is okay. And if the answer is no, try to contact the developers. Most issues today overall can be solved simply with discussion. Issues such as these don't have to be a fight, and instead should be simply a debate. Only with discussion can we make change. And Only with change can we make our world truly more inclusive. And in the case of games, games are an escape from our everyday lives, the harsh reality of them. So why shouldn't they be more inclusive? I would like to end with the design philosophy of Nintendo being to simply challenge themselves to do better. And so I would say that we should apply that both as gamers, but more importantly as people, to our daily lives. Only when we challenge ourselves can we truly prosper, and only then can we truly make change. And so, in your lives, simply decide to spark discussion and simply be the change that you want to see in the world. Thank you.